My parents refused to pay for my college, saying I'd never use a degree. Now they want $5 million from me. I stand at the edge of the candlelit charity auction, champagne flute cold against my palm, pretending the polished room isn't stirring a dozen wounds I thought had scarred over. The Metropolitan Foundation Gala hums with New York's elite, their laughter crystalline, their jewels catching light like tiny daggers. Somewhere in this sea of tuxedos and evening gowns, my husband Elias works the room with that effortless charm of his, building bridges that will benefit both our companies. I've learned to navigate these events with practiced grace. But tonight feels different, heavier somehow. I retreat to a quiet corner near the silent auction tables, needing just 5 minutes away from the performance of it all. The champagne tastes expensive and empty. I'm studying a framed photograph on the wall, some benefactor's family portrait, all perfect smiles and coordinated outfits, when I hear it. My God, look, the defective item made it in. The voice slices through my moment of peace like a scalpel through skin. I freeze, hoping I've misheard, hoping the past 12 years have been enough distance. But hope is a foolish thing. How did it get here? Another voice, higher, tinged with manufactured surprise. Mother, you didn't invite that embarrassment, did you? A third voice, dripping with the particular brand of contempt only a sister can perfect. Surely not. My heart hammers against my ribs as I turn slowly, as if moving too fast might shatter something vital inside me. They're standing there, Eleanor Robinson in pearls and polished judgment, my sister Serafina draped in designer contempt, their faces exactly as I remember them, though time has carved deeper lines around my mother's cold eyes. I try to walk away, to slip back into the crowd where Elias is waiting, where I'm safe. But Sarah moves into my path with surprising speed, her manicured nails suddenly digging into my arm. Look at you, trying to pretend you belong here, she hisses, close enough that I can smell her expensive perfume. The room tilts, blurs. Suddenly I'm 18 again, pressed against the hallway wall of our childhood home. Sarah's face inches from mine, screaming accusations I didn't understand. The memory tastes like copper and shame. I pull my arm free with deliberate calm, straightening my spine the way I've learned to do in boardrooms when men twice my age try to intimidate me. I'm sorry. Do we know each other? The question lands exactly as intended. Eleanor gasps, her hand flying to those ridiculous pearls at her throat. Sarah's mouth drops open, fury blooming beneath her perfect makeup like blood under ice. How dare you? Eleanor steps forward, one finger jabbing toward my chest. I am your mother. Mother. The word should mean warmth, protection, unconditional love. Instead, it fills me with a hollow ache that all my success, all my self-built empire, hasn't quite managed to fill. Is there a problem here? Dr. Arthur Robinson appears at Eleanor's side, silver hair perfectly coiffed, still carrying himself like the prominent surgeon he once was. Beside him stands a tall, dark-haired man in his 30s, who watches the scene with growing confusion. Preston, darling. Sarah pivots immediately, her voice transforming into honey. This suspicious person snuck in. Security needs to remove her immediately. Preston Vance III. I recognize the name from business circles. Old money, connected to half the law firms in Manhattan. He glances between Sarah and me, his brow furrowing. I'm not sure, he begins, but Arthur cuts him off with a dismissive wave. Security should be notified, my father agrees, looking at me not as his daughter, but as something distasteful he's found on his shoe. Preston's gaze lingers on me, recognition slowly dawning. Wait, aren't you? Carlin, there you are. Elias's voice cuts through the tension like sunlight through fog. He appears beside me, his hand finding the small of my back, steady, grounding, real. My family falls silent, thrown off balance by this unexpected development. Eleanor recovers first, her social instincts kicking in as she assesses Elias's obvious wealth and power. She extends her hand toward him. "Sir, you don't understand who you're with. This is our problematic older daughter. A high school graduate only. No ambition. A parasite." The word hits me like it always does, even though I should be immune by now. "We had to throw her out of the house 12 years ago," Eleanor continues, voice dripping with false concern. "For our own sanity." I feel Elias shift beside me, his body tensing. My hands begin to tremble at my sides, the only outward sign of the storm raging inside me, the only crack in the armor I've spent a decade building. The room seems to hold its breath. Then Elias speaks, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable authority. "I am Elias Thorne, and this is my wife, Carlin Robinson, founder and CEO of Datasphere Analytics." The words land with physical impact. Eleanor's face pales. Arthur's shoulders stiffen. I watch them process this information. These two people who spent years convincing me I was worthless. "That's impossible," Arthur mutters, but his voice wavers. "Before she was my wife," Elias continues, pride evident in every word, "she was the single best founder my fund ever invested in. I wrote her a $2 million seed check 7 years ago based on an algorithm she wrote herself, after teaching herself to code." Preston looks physically ill. He glances at his watch as if checking whether he's somehow slipped into an alternate reality. "Mr. Thorne is one of our firm's largest clients," Preston says slowly, carefully, like he's navigating a minefield he didn't know existed. Sarah's face contorts with confusion. "What does that have to do with—" "Datasphere just signed a $15 million contract with us last month," Preston interrupts. The silence that follows is exquisite. Eleanor and Arthur stand frozen, their carefully constructed narrative crumbling like sand castles at high tide. "CEO?" Eleanor sputters, as if the word physically hurts her to say. "That's impossible. She's—" "Lies!" Sarah shrieks, her voice climbing higher, drawing stares from nearby guests. "It's all lies. She's stupid. I'm the successful one. I graduated from Yale." I keep my voice even, almost sympathetic. "That's funny. I heard you flunked out of community college after 1 semester. Her eyes widen with genuine terror. "And partner at the foundation," I continue. "My sources say you're an unpaid events volunteer." Preston's face hardens as years of deception click into place. I can see him mentally revisiting conversations, recalculating everything he thought he knew about the woman he was planning to marry. "My God," he whispers, "it's all been a lie." "You bitch!" Sarah's hand swings out, connecting with Preston's cheek in a slap that echoes through our corner of the ballroom. Security guards materialize within seconds. They gently but firmly take Sarah by the arms while she thrashes and screams, her designer dress twisting around her legs, her carefully constructed facade shattering into 1,000 irreparable pieces. "We're done," Preston says flatly, one hand on his reddening cheek. "Get her out of here." I meet Elias's eyes across the chaos. He raises an eyebrow, a silent question about our next move. I nod imperceptibly. It's time to leave this battlefield on our own terms. The war has just begun, but the first victory is undeniably ours. The memory of that signature haunts me as I stand at my office window 3 days later, watching rain streak down the glass. I was 18 when I signed those papers in my father's wood-paneled study, trusting the adults who promised my future would be protected. "It's your trust fund from your grandparents," Dr. Arthur Robinson had said, sliding legal documents across his mahogany desk. His tone was dismissive, bored almost, as if we were discussing nothing more important than a grocery list. "Just sign here, and we'll invest it for your future." I remember the weight of that Mont Blanc pen in my hand. How important it made me feel to be included in family financial matters. How naive I'd been. How trusting. I scrawled my name across the dotted line without reading a word of the fine print. As I handed the papers back, movement in the hallway caught my eye. Sarah stood just outside the door, a seamstress kneeling at her feet, pinning the hem of an elaborate ivory gown adorned with hand-sewn pearls. "For the Westchester debutante ball next month," Eleanor had explained, appearing behind Sarah. "She'll be the belle of the evening." The realization had crashed over me like Arctic water. But I'd been too young, too conditioned to obedience to understand what it meant. The $150,000 from my grandparents, money explicitly designated for my education, was flowing instead into silk and pearls for my sister. 3 weeks later, I found myself on the front porch with 2 suitcases, my mother's final words still burning in my ears. "You'll never amount to anything, Carlin. Some people just aren't meant for success." Now, 12 years later, a casual remark in the press, an offhand line in a society column about who paid for what at that fateful debutante ball, has reopened the old wound. The splinter has become a blade, and I'm determined to trace the truth behind the vanished fund. My phone buzzes. A text from my forensic accountant. "Found something? Can you meet today?" I grab my coat without hesitation. The night they evicted me plays on an endless loop in my mind as I sit in the accountant's sterile office, waiting for her to finish compiling the documents. I was 18, standing on the porch with everything I owned crammed into 2 duffel bags, listening to Arthur enumerate all the reasons I wouldn't survive without them. "You're not college material," he'd said, arms crossed, blocking the doorway like I might try to force my way back inside. No work ethic, no discipline, no potential. Behind him, Eleanor had nodded, her face a mask of practiced disappointment. "We gave you every opportunity, Carlin. It's not our fault you couldn't rise to them." Sarah had watched from the upstairs window, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Their words rewrote my life that night. Their choices meant I learned to fend for myself instead of walking across a campus stage in a cap and gown. I built something practical from that exile. Long nights teaching myself to code between shifts at a coffee shop, freelance gigs that paid in experience more than money, stubborn lessons that tasted like both hunger and possibility. I learned to survive. Then I learned to thrive. "Mrs. Thorne?" The accountant's voice pulls me back to the present. "You need to see this." She spreads the documents across her desk like evidence at a crime scene. Bank statements, transfer receipts, signatures that don't match the story I was told. "The trust fund was liquidated 3 days after you left home," she explains, tapping one document with her pen. "The full $150,000 was transferred directly to Serafina Robinson's personal account." I pick up one of the receipts, a custom gown from an elite boutique. The date matches perfectly with when I'd been sleeping on a friend's couch, working double shifts, surviving on ramen and sheer stubbornness. "This is embezzlement," the accountant says matter-of-factly. Clear as day. Each line item brings anger, sharpened with relief. The child's confusion becomes the adult's ammunition. I realize the fight ahead is legal, emotional, and public all at once. But I'm ready. I've been preparing for this my entire life, without even knowing it. I taught myself to read the language of systems and algorithms between shifts, washing dishes, and serving coffee, turning desperate curiosity into something no one expected. Each small win became scaffolding. My first freelance client, then another, then a tiny team working out of my cramped apartment. An algorithm that hummed to life at 3 a.m. after months of failed attempts. I remember the loneliness of that success. How it felt born not from passion, but from necessity. Every contract felt like proof I could exist without their approval. But the validation was hollow, because the people who should have celebrated my victories had been the ones to engineer my exile. Still, the old wounds prick when someone's voice carries a certain tone, when doubt creeps in during quiet moments. The defective label doesn't wash off easily, no matter how many zeros appear in your bank account. Now, standing in my corner office with 37 employees depending on me, I finally understand something crucial. I didn't build this company to prove them wrong. I built it to prove myself right, that I was worth investing in all along. My phone rings. It's my lawyer. They've made their move, she says without preamble. The Robinsons have filed a lawsuit against you. They're demanding $5 million for elderly support and family obligation. The audacity leaves me dizzy for exactly 1 second. Then my mind clears, sharp and cold. Send me the full complaint, I say. I'll clear my schedule. When they walk into the same fundraiser where I'm volunteering 2 weeks later, I realize fate has a cruel sense of humor. Or perhaps it's not fate at all. Perhaps they've been tracking my movements, looking for an opportunity to corner me before the lawsuit proceeds. Their eyes slide over me with practiced contempt. The same expressions that once dismissed my ambitions as childish fantasy. A younger man at their side, Preston's replacement, probably another suitable match for Sarah, studies me with polite confusion. Carlin. Eleanor's voice drips with false warmth. We need to talk, family to family. We have nothing to discuss, I reply evenly. My lawyers will handle everything. Don't be dramatic, Arthur interjects, his surgeon's voice trying to command obedience. This has gotten out of hand. Surely we can resolve this privately. But I keep my composure, even as inside a quiet decision settles like snow. Their story will not stand unchallenged. The narrative they've controlled for 12 years is about to be rewritten. And this time, I'm holding the pen. If you have something to say, I tell them, you can say it in court. I walk away before they can respond, feeling their shock like heat against my back. The forensic accountant I hire is worth every penny. Document by document, the papers lay out a different truth. Transfers, receipts, signatures that tell a story my parents never wanted exposed. This is enough for a criminal case, she tells me, tapping the evidence. Embezzlement of a trust fund. It's textbook. But an elderly woman named Margaret Thompson brings me something even more valuable. She appears at my office without an appointment, leaning on a polished wooden cane, her silver hair carefully styled. I was your grandmother's best friend for 40 years, she explains, settling into the chair across from my desk. I was the executor of that trust fund. I've kept copies of all the original documents. She opens her handbag and withdraws a folder of papers, yellowed with age, but meticulously preserved in plastic sleeves. I suspected something wasn't right when I heard you hadn't gone to college, she continues. The trust was explicitly created for your education, but I couldn't prove anything without your cooperation. And by the time I tried to find you, you'd disappeared. I opened the folder with steady hands. There it is, in clear black and white. For the higher education of our granddaughter, Carlin Eleanor Robinson. I should have done more, Margaret says, regret heavy in her voice. I'm sorry. But I'm not sorry. These documents, these witnesses, these long-forgotten emails, they're ammunition. The courtroom will become an arena where past kindnesses and past betrayals are weighed with cold formality. I watch my parents' confidence crack as the story tilts in my favor. The tabloids sniff blood within days of the lawsuit becoming public. Social feeds swell with versions of our family saga, some sympathetic to me, most just hungry for spectacle. My company's stock wobbles under the noise, but something unexpected happens. Actual clients step forward with statements. Colleagues I've worked with for years speak on record about my character. There's a strange intimacy in watching strangers defend your worth when your blood refuses to. Carlin Robinson is one of the most ethical CEOs I've worked with. One client tells a business reporter, "Her company changed our entire data infrastructure," says another. Whatever her family claims, her professional reputation speaks for itself. Even Preston Vance reaches out through his lawyers, offering to provide a sworn statement about Sarah's deceptions. Apparently, she tried to reconcile with him by claiming I'd manipulated him at the gala. He wasn't amused. I keep my focus on the documents, not the headlines. Legal truth will outlast gossip. But I won't lie, seeing people rise to my defense feels like vindication I didn't know I needed. The Robinson family home appears on real estate listings, priced well below market value for a quick sale. I hear through business contacts that Arthur's malpractice insurance has been revoked, that old patients are coming forward with complaints now that Preston's law firm isn't running interference. Their carefully constructed world is collapsing, and I feel neither satisfaction nor pity. Just a cold acknowledgement that consequences have finally arrived. The judge orders mediation. A fluorescent lit room with a long table and the terrible small talk of people pretending to be civil. I sit opposite the two faces that taught me who I wasn't supposed to be, watching a slow recognition pass through the room. Evidence is not just paper. It holds memory and motive. My lawyer lays the trace of the trust fund bare, document by document. Transfer records, bank statements, receipts for Sarah's debutante ball that match the exact amount of my stolen education fund. Their lawyer grows smaller with each revelation, his earlier confidence evaporating. Eleanor fidgets with her cheap suit jacket, nothing like the designer labels she once wore like armor. Arthur hunches forward, the once proud surgeon now diminished. "This is textbook embezzlement," my lawyer states calmly. "And it is a felony." They request a recess. When they return 15 minutes later, all traces of arrogance have vanished. "We would like to withdraw our lawsuit immediately," their lawyer announces. "We're prepared to proceed with criminal charges," my lawyer counters. "Please, Carlin." Eleanor's voice breaks, and for the first time I hear something that might be genuine fear beneath the manipulation. "We'll lose everything." Arthur cannot even look at me. His hands tremble on the table. I take a deep breath, feeling the weight of this moment. I could destroy them completely, press charges, Let them face criminal prosecution. Watch them lose their home, their reputation, what little they have left. But revenge isn't my goal. Truth is, I won't press criminal charges, I say finally. Relief flashes across their faces, but I continue before they can speak. In exchange for a permanent, ironclad restraining order, I never want to see or hear from any of you again. I offer them a choice, accountability, or final separation. And I speak with the voice that was trained in boardrooms and late nights. The voice they never wanted me to find. They withdraw the lawsuit, but the outcome is more complex than silence or triumph. It's a formal break that demands legal distance and moral closure. I negotiate terms that protect my company, secure my privacy, and force their hands to account for what they took. There is no gloating. There is only a cool acknowledgement that the scales tilted because I refused to stay silent. The papers are signed within the hour. The Robinsons leave quickly, shoulders slumped, avoiding eye contact. I remain seated as the mediator confirms this matter is officially resolved. I stand, feeling taller than I ever have before. Elias takes my hand, pride evident in his eyes. Masterfully handled, my lawyer says quietly. It's finally over, I reply, and for the first time I truly believe it. In the aftermath, I find the strange peace that comes when the past is cataloged and contained. The wounds don't disappear, but they stop bleeding. The defective label loses its power when you stop listening for it. Instead of revenge, I build a bridge I once thought denied to me. I establish a scholarship fund for students who slip through the cracks when family support fails them. The DataSphere Educational Trust, 5 full rides annually for disadvantaged students, with personal mentoring included. The cycle of educational inequality breaking, one student at a time. I visit the first recipients in a high school auditorium, seeing my own younger self in eyes full of bewildered hope. They ask how I forgave, and I answer honestly. I didn't forgive because they deserved it, I tell them. I forgave to stop being shaped by their definitions of me. One girl approaches me after the ceremony, clutching her acceptance letter like it might disappear. They said I wasn't college material, she whispers. My parents. They said I should just get a job. I recognize the wound in her voice, the way doubt has burrowed under her skin. You are more than their limitations, I tell her, placing a hand on her shoulder. And this scholarship is just the beginning. You're going to do extraordinary things. Tears stream down her face, and I realize I'm crying too. Standing in that scholarship hall auditorium, I recognize how life remakes itself if you take the pen. The story they wrote for me, defective, worthless, destined to fail, was never true. It was just the only story they knew how to tell. So I wrote a different one. Months pass. My company continues to grow. The lawsuit becomes a footnote, then a distant memory. I see my reflection in office windows and no longer search for the defective child they created. I see the woman I built myself into, scarred but unbroken, shaped by exile into something they never imagined possible. Elias and I stand on our penthouse balcony one evening, city lights spread before us like fallen stars. The scholarship fund announcement sits on the coffee table behind us, framed and official. Do you ever think about them? He asks, his arm around my waist. I consider the question, realizing the answer comes easier now. Less and less each day. I lean into his embrace. They didn't break me. They showed me how strong I could be. The night air feels clean in my lungs, no longer heavy with old resentments. Some people teach you what to become. Others teach you what to never be. I'm grateful for both lessons now, because the girl they threw away became the woman they could never control. The trust fund they stole bought my sister a single night of borrowed glory. But the education I gave myself built an empire that will outlast all of us. And in the end, that's the only revenge that matters. Not their destruction, but my creation. Not proving them wrong, but proving myself right. I was never defective. I was just waiting for the chance to define myself. And when that chance came, I seized it with both hands and never let go.